Okay, I'm trying this again. Hopefully everything works through. And for anybody following up with this on YouTube later, just wanted to give a huge thank you, one, for following my YouTube and subscribing there, but also a huge thank you to my Patreons. Tiers start at $5 a month. You all are so keeping me going right now, and I just appreciate your support and your kindness. And you all get some really awesome tiers and perks right now. So I'm so happy to share that with you, and I'm happy to share exclusive content with you as well. So everybody who is just joining, hello. I am here, open to questions, and Emily is going to be joining me momentarily, and we're going to be talking about how we handle fears. So until then, where are you coming from? Who are you? Where are you coming from? I love reading where people come from as I eat my popcorn. Because apparently I choke on my popcorn. Australia! Oh my goodness, what time is it there? Jersey, hello. Hi. San Antonio, hello. Seattle, cool. Ontario, Canada. 9 a.m. in Australia. Oh my goodness. Oklahoma, I have family out there. Traveling back to, it's Indiana, right? North Dakota, St. Louis, hello. Austin, I was in Austin before pandemic, that was fun. Cali, hello. What's up, everyone? Let's see. Bulgaria, what's up? Michigan, Belize. Wow, you all are from all over the place. Florida, hello. Am I pronouncing that right, Okala? Is anyone pinging me today? I wasn't open to just anybody pinging me today. Besides the typical people who I allow to ping me, basically. Hello. Hi, thanks for joining. We are just getting started here. And Emily just texted me. She's going to be joining momentarily. Boop. Hello. Hershey, PA. What's up? Thanks so much for sharing where you're from. I love reading where everybody's from. That's super exciting for me. So cool. Cool. Hello, everyone. We're going to be talking about facing fears very soon. This is a romper. Otherwise, I would not be sitting cross-legged in front of a camera. Fair question. Just got off work. Congratulations. Chicago, Ohio, what is up? Oh, you made a new account. I'm glad that you're back. That makes me happy. Yeah. A lot of people, for anybody who's like, whoa, I haven't seen you recently, or like my account unfollowed you or something like that. I'm still here. I still post daily. So if you haven't seen me in a while, consider checking out my page, because I've got a lot of stuff that I've been posting, a lot of really fun stuff as well. Reenactments and skits and fun stuff. And let's see, what's tomorrow? I think I'm going to have another medium versus muggle video tomorrow. That's what I have on the calendar. So yeah, cool. Oklahoma, we got a few folks from Oklahoma here. Hey everybody, welcome. Oh goodness. North Carolina, hello. Glad you found me again. I'm doing all right. I hope everybody else is doing all right. You know, it's weird. All right means, it should mean like really good, but nowadays I feel like it means more like okay. Like that's the vibe of it. So I'm doing okay. I've got my needs met, and I'm safe, and I think it's really good. So yeah. New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Savannah. Amber Heard. I'll have to look her up. No, I did not break up with my husband and partner of 10 years. Yeah, we're very good. Ooh, there she is.
Honey. Oh, there.
Hello.
Hi, friend. How are you?
I'm good. I just realized how like apparently wide my legs are, but it's just a bowl of popcorn, so I just like looked down and I was like, oh, okay, apparently it's that show, but it's not. It's not. So
At least you have snacks. I didn't bring snacks.
I had a random thought of somebody gifted me somebody. It was the Travel Channel. Thank you for the gift. Gifted me a little popcorn maker thing. I'm butchering it, but they gifted me that, and I was like, wait, I just found that in the back of my car. I should use it, and that's the story of how I have popcorn tonight.
It's a great promo. You just plugged that popcorn machine so well.
Yeah, I'm gonna be really great with merch, let me tell you. Really, everybody buy this, because yeah. Oh my goodness. So, okay, you look lovely all the time, but today especially, there's something about you that's just you look very lovely today.
Thank you. I don't know why. I'm wearing it's like a Canadian tuxedo romper, which I appreciate. It's like all the yeah, my kids have left the house right now. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's quiet.
So I'm picking up on the energy. Noted.
How are you? How have you been doing? We wanted to hop on, for everyone who's watching, we wanted to hop on and do kind of a live around talking about fear and stuff in the spiritual community that tends to be very fear-free, I guess is the best way I can describe it, when I was tuning into the energy, and just to chat with you all, and any questions you have about things you're scared of in the spiritual capacities. We've done this for a while, and Rebekah especially deals with a lot of things that are perceived scary or in the media are portrayed like fear. I'm going to say it that way. So if you guys have any sort of questions in regards to developing your psychic abilities or those things and the things that are scaring you, that's kind of what we want to chat about, I guess, right?
Yeah. So I texted Emily 2 weeks ago before a lot of particular national events in the States happened. And it came about, somebody asked me how I handle fears, especially when it comes to spiritual awakening, because we're seeing a huge spiritual awakening happening right now. And from what I'm finding, it's across the board. It's not just one religion or one faith or one deity or something like that. It's very much people are becoming more aware of, I think, themselves. And so they're becoming more aware of their soul and what that means to them, what that connects to for them. Yeah. And for some, it can be very scary. It's kind of if you start seeing stuff all of a sudden, typically it's not as sudden as that. Usually it kind of starts somewhere. But I know for some, it can be kind of a jumping off point. And for that, but also when looking at our day-to-day, our reality in this country, but also in this world, we are all connected in some form or fashion. What does it look like to, one, acknowledge fear, but also acknowledge it in a non-consuming and proactive way, rather than, having, anxiety attacks and that kind of thing? Those happen sometimes, and that's valid. It's just more of if you can get through that, or if you don't even need to have it in the first place, what does it look like to advance and apply and think logically rather than be caught in this overwhelming sensation, especially if the sensation is not entirely yours? That's another thing I want to talk about. And I'll just go into it. When I have a very strong emotion, nowadays, the first thing that I ask myself is it mine? Mm-hmm. I'll clear my energetic field, and then I'll ask again, was that mine, or was I absorbing something, or was I being hit with something? And then basically from there, it's you always have the choice. If it's yours, acknowledge it, see if there's something you can do something about it, make sure you're in a safe place, talk to the people you need to talk to, or have alone time. And then if it's not yours, you get to say, oh, the world feels like this. I can acknowledge that I don't have to play into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think it's I love how you got this message about fear a couple days before certain national events happened. And fear ramped up massively. And if you're in the middle of a spiritual awakening journey or anything like that, your fear amplified double, regardless of how that awakening journey looks for you. And right now, I think, just to your point, I think it is kind of like a second wave of spiritual awakenings. I think there was a lot of awakening that happened at the start of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And when people had this alone time, when they were sitting in their own thoughts, and a lot of awakening happened then. And now this one is kind of like the result of that one, where it's like the next wave of this. And either people are awakening deeper. I mean, ourselves included. I constantly feel like there's no journey, there's no stop to your spiritual awakening journey. It just keeps happening forever. Once you start, you're on it. It just keeps going, which is awesome. It's pretty exciting when you really think about it, because that means you're constantly getting to learn and grow, and that's awesome. But that initial like, whoa feeling is what a lot of people are stepping into, maybe for the second time, or maybe for the first time. And I think that, just kind of to your point of starting to get really comfortable with your emotions, because emotions are energy in motion. That's like the easiest energy we have access to at the core of it. A lot of the fears oftentimes aren't our own, that we're tuning into. We might be tuning into the collective. We might have just walked through a space that had a lot of fear energy stored up in it. Someone could have walked past you in the grocery store and they could be really angry, and now you feel really angry. Or you just all of a sudden feel overwhelmed. I think that is kind of a misconception when it comes to how we absorb energy from other people. Sometimes the energy we absorb, you can identify what emotion it is. Sometimes you've just absorbed energy and you just know that there's overwhelming stuff in your space and you don't know what it is. Either way, clearing, transmuting, or grounding that energy as soon as you feel that come in is going to be really helpful. Because we'll either be left with that same feeling, and that way you know it's yours, or that whole thing will just go away and you can be like, cool, that's fine. Hopefully I helped by sending it into the earth, and you can move on about your day. Very clearly, because that's the number one thing when talking about fear in general, is like, if it's not yours, you don't need to react to it.
A question for you. Because I know you see energy, whereas I see more with my mind's eye.
Yeah.
When you see fear, what does it look like to you?
That is a great question. So I classify fear in multiple different kinds. So when we're little kids and we have a feeling, our parents label said. Usually that label is the easiest thing that they can grasp on to tell us, to make us understand whatever feeling that is, or some other adult in our life did it. That doesn't necessarily mean that was an accurate label. It just, that's what we now perceive that fear as being, because someone labeled it for us. So as I got older and really started seeing the energy, there's multiple different kinds of fear. When I look at real fear, or true fear, which is the fear that you don't want to release, right? We're talking fear like, I don't want to get hit by a car, so I'm not going to go stand in the road. That makes me afraid. Or, fear that there's a tiger in the room and it's going to come attack you. Like those kind of fears, that is the real human fear that is needed, and super important, and wouldn't want to get away. That actually, surprisingly enough, when I look at someone in that real fear, it actually looks like the acute awakening. It is not sharp. It is not painful. It is acute awake energy. Like all the energy is sparking very intensely. It tends to all be very focused in, like very pointed in that way, but not pointed towards the person necessarily. It's like a very pointed, alert energy. That is just very, very intense. Like it looks very focused in, it looks very electric. It looks like it gives you the ability to react as needed very, very quickly. So when I look at that energy, for sure. Now, when I talk about other different types of fear, it's the type of fear that you want to heal through belief work, or it's the type of fear that's maybe like generalized fear that has specific pinpointed location, or maybe it's not even your own fear. You got it ancestrally and you're like, man, I'm claustrophobic. Why am I claustrophobic? I have no idea, but small spaces terrify me. Those types of fear look different. The energy of those fears looks very different. For example, fears of things like people not liking you, or fears of maybe appearing a certain way, or whatever it is, the kinds of fears look, instead of the focus being pointed outward, the energy is going into the person. Which is usually a huge indicator where I'm like, that is a fear that we can actually release and heal through. We can get over. That shows you where your limiting beliefs and blocks are. That is a tool more than it is an emotion in the classic sense, if that makes sense. And then again, if those broad ancestral fears, or those broad fears of like, oh, I feel like there's just something weird here and I'm just sensing fear, that tends to be kind of out sort of net look. It looks like with weird crisscrossing panels that each kind of have a different shape to them, if that makes sense, because you don't know what it looks like. And so that energy tends to be that way. Really long answer to a really short question, but hopefully that's helpful.
I think that's good though. One, it's good to acknowledge. Sorry, I'm like tapping on things.
No, you're good.
To acknowledge that there are different kinds of fear, and some of them
Mm-hmm.
are what comes at you, and some of them are what comes up, and some of
Yeah.
them maybe ancestral, past lives.
Yeah, that's a
It
huge
can be a
part of it.
variety of things. Um, One thing, like when I see fear, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm more likely to see auras
Mm-hmm.
first if I'm going to see anything with my physical eyes. It comes through as colors. So when I see fear, it tends to come about as a it's like this deep shade of like it's darker than a navy blue and it kind of mixes with this black. And it's interesting what you were saying about how like the energy can come kind of swirling inward because that's what I see with that energy. Um, or if the energy is the kind of fear that comes from rather than like depression based and more from like perhaps a more anxiety based or something like
Yeah.
that. Sometimes there's like flashes of red and they shoot out from
Mm-hmm.
a person. And
Yeah.
when I talk about shooting out from a person, that's what we're talking about when we're saying you can pick up from emotions from other people because sometimes it's like this swirling loop that affects the individual. Sometimes it's a that just kind of it can
Well,
travel. You know, it.
yeah.
I tell people sometimes I'm like, you know, what you just felt may have been from like a mile away, and it's just been doing its thing for however long, and then it, for whatever reason, hit you. Like, so acknowledge whether it's yours or not.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I agree with that. Also, anxiety does have a different look to it. It tends to have anxiety is its own emotion. And yes, it's like in the fear family, but it's
Mm-hmm.
like the same way excitement is in the joy family, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense. So like anxiety is its own emotion for sure. Like it's kind of a disconnected there. And anxiety has a lot of roots in those like limiting beliefs and blocks and stuff that we can clear and work through a lot of the time. That being said, what I always say, especially on touching on this, if you're working on expanding your abilities and you ever are like having you're going about your day and maybe you're feeling calm or maybe you're happy or whatever, and then you have a drastic, instantaneous, like opposite feeling, and then you're back to the normal, that is typically a spirit poke. Like that is someone being like, yo, getting your attention, especially if you have a lot of clarity, meaning you sense energetic information through a response, which is different than being an empath. But if you have a lot of clear empathy, you're going to get a lot of those spirit pokes. That's how it's going to feel, is that
Mm-hmm.
energy like boom, getting your attention. That's another way that, that fear can come up, especially if it feels literally like it comes out of nowhere. You're happy, all of a sudden you're really scared, and now you're happy again. You're like, why am I scared? What just happened? Most likely your guides have a message for you, and that is probably what's going on.
Something I'll add to that too, when it comes to thoughts, because some people are perceiving um, thoughts or like we talked about emotion. There's also like you can feel sometimes, but with thoughts in particular, especially when it comes to either claircognizance or inner ear clairaudience, because that can be confusing too. If it's inner ear and you're just like, wait, did I say that?
Right.
I always tell people to see if they can trace where the word or phrase came from or the idea, because spirits, they have their own train of thought. Now we will have our own train of thought. So if I'm talking to you and I'm like, butterflies,
Mm-hmm.
that was from my train of thought. I can connect, where did this come from? Where did that go? Where did that go? So it's not random to me, it's just random to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with spirits, they have their own cognizance, so they have their own train of thought. So if you get these random ideas and you flat out have no idea where they came from, ask yourself, was that me? And
Mm-hmm.
see how you feel. Because once again, I think people get really caught up on the getting a yes or like hearing a no or something like that. I encourage people to feel a yes or a no because one, it helps you detect lies through other people and spirits. By the way, they will run around and be like, "No, I am good." And, like you can feel that. That was a bad example, but it was a very bad example.
I would love to meet a spirit that ran by and was like, I'm good. That would be fantastic. So thank you for that.
Well, see, random thought, not random. That actually came from, I was doing a spirit guide reading the other day for somebody, and the being came back and they said, I am definitely human. And I was like,
Sure you are, sir.
What human says that? They're like, I am a human being. And I looked a little bit further. I was like, no, you're not. And they're like, no. I was like, great, thank you. Thank you for that ride today.
I am a human person.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Perceptions, the more you get into like spirit guides or like channeling deities or even like, you know, ghosts, etc., the perception of what they think we communicate like is always hilarious, because I know they're, but they see so many different layers. So often, like, the way that we don't know what's going on in someone else's head and their perception, like, they don't know how we're actually perceiving the stuff that's happening. So to them, our communication looks very different than what it is. So the way they come up and show up to communicate half the time, they're like, look, it's a pineapple. And I'm like, and like, what is helpful about this?
Mm-hmm.
But the nuances there are so funny because so many of them do not understand 3D communication at all. The same way they'd be like, I'm a person. They're like, nope, that's not what people say.
I love this, though. I want to get back to a question that I had a little while back, because I find this all the time. This person asked, basically saying, how do you fight the fear of when you're first opening up of, basically what they were saying was, how do you know if what you're talking to is good, and what if you invite something bad? Like, how do you fight that fear? So I'll hand that off to you first.
That is a great question. I get that quite a lot. The first thing that I always say is, you're way more powerful having a corporeal form than anything that you're summoning in the energetic space. Just period. You are grounded, you're rooted, you have your guides, you have a whole team around you. So anything that were to come in, you have the power to send away. Mm-hmm. I don't care who you are. I don't care how far you are in your awakening. You have that power. You might have, as a kid, gotten really scared and forgotten that that power is available to you. No matter how much you learn, you might still be operating off of that old fear. So I always recommend check yourself. If you have that old fear, start to heal and work on that. But 100% you have more power than you give yourself credit for, mm-hmm. all the time. Also, you standing grounded and rooted, asking your guides to come in and support. Oh, thank you. Your guides to come in and support. You and maybe they're the ones that deal with it. Most people have at least one guide that's at least semi-dedicated to protection, asking them to come in. That is another thing to do if you don't feel fully equipped. But the biggest thing is, when you start out, make sure you're always doing your spiritual hygiene, clear, ground, and shield. Make sure you're nice and shielded. And whenever you're doing anything, there's tons of different shielding techniques. Rebekah has some. I know I have some. There's a million on YouTube. Like, feel free to search it up. But shield your energy before you do any sort of work. And whenever something comes in, I don't know what your system is for this. Whenever I find a new being, whatever it is, I have a series of rooms that I channel through. So I have like a spirit guide room. I have a deity room. I have like myself. I have like mediumship, which is like ghosts, etc. I also have like, you know, otherworldly spirits, I guess, you know, things like the fae, things like dragons, you name it. And so whenever something comes up, I always am like, oh, what room did they come through? Because that's the only part of me that's sensing that energy. Because they're my room, and I decided that that's what they are. If I don't want to talk to them anymore, I shut it off. Goodbye, the room is closed. You can't come in. And just knowing you have that power, even if you don't set it up exactly that way, is a great way to combat that fear, because you're super supported, and then you're also in control because you have a switch of on and off that you have decided. What do you want to add to that? That was like kind of convoluted, but
I love that. No, I mean, I thought that was great. So first up, I'm not going to choke on pepper. Here I am. I'm so engaged. I'm like eating this popcorn. I'm like, yeah, this is so good. This is so great. Thank you for this hat. So, train of thought, bringing it back. Yes. Okay. Planes. As whether that's a dimension or plane of existence, whatever you believe in, ascribe to. I'm of the belief that we are here in the physical plane. That means that we have the power here. Now, sure, there are other planes, other dimensions that kind of can do this or kind of do that, or, you know, that kind of thing. If we are to go over to their planes, they make the rules. They make the decisions, that kind of thing. We, like, if we're somehow there in, like, astral or in dreaming or something like that, If we get permission to see that, maybe from a guide.
Yep.
Like, once again, we are, we're visitors, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So I think too, in part, this can be tied back to being with other physical people. So sometimes I will see people will be just afraid of saying no to a spirit because they're already afraid of saying no to other people.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that we talk about, and this is something I go over with consultations as well, I'm always like, start applying it with people in, your stratosphere. Start applying it to other physical people. What's going on, you guys? Well,
Ew.
they're going that way. So yeah, practice saying no in your own life. Understand that you have the power to say no to things. You have the power to say no to other people. And you can grow that in the spiritual form too. Sometimes they can balance off of one another. That's exactly what you want. But the reality is, you standing in your truth, in your power, in your respect to your own consent, that is what transfers over. The other thing too, yeah, this keeps happening. I'm like,
Yeah.
the other thing.
You're getting your points taken from you, just not that one. What I would say that with practicing it in physical reality too, whenever someone asks, like, how can I turn it on and off? I don't want it on all the time. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. Like, are you constantly all the time at work? No, at some point you leave and you go home. You don't have to be at work all the time. So practicing it again in your 3D earth life makes a lot of sense and is really helpful. The other thing I always say, if you're starting your spiritual journey, you got to start with healing. That's just required. It's a requirement. You're going to start by healing, which usually means start by learning how to establish boundaries again, learning how to respect yourself again, learning what you will and will not tolerate again, because all of those come with healing. That also comes with magic. Someone said earlier too, like, I'm a medium too, and I don't know where to start. Someone commented on here, and it feels like I'm wasting a gift. You're not wasting a gift. Just because you're acknowledging it and you're starting, that's how it's supposed to go. It was given to you. But the same thing kind of applies, and there's a million different places to start with that. It's mostly just go with feels like the most fun to try out in that given moment. That's always where do you start? You start with fun. What feels the most fun, that's going to lead you to the next thing, and that's going to lead you to the next thing. Or what feels the most exciting or inspirational, if fun is transferred. But the same thing kind of goes the other direction too on that. My God, my point just got taken. Give it back. Hold on.
I'm pushing it back.
Okay. It was literally when I felt one of my guides come in and like, whoop, and I was like, no, I want it back now. So basically, what that is what I was going to say. I got it back. Sorry. When you work with spirits and stuff, even though the energy feels magical and it is inherently magical, it is still just as much of an ability as riding a bike is an ability, and it can be as tangible as riding a bike is. So if instead of feeling like, oh, I have to talk to them, if they want something from me, I have to do it. Absolutely not. It's the same way with people. You don't owe them anything just because you can perceive them. It's the same way no one owes you anything just because they can perceive you. It's kind of the both there. And I think that's a huge fear thing that comes up for people a lot of the times too, is like, oh no, if I open this up, I now have a whole bunch more people that want me as a resource, a whole bunch more beings I'm going to be at the whim of, which no, no, you don't.
And it also is a matter of, one, if you're going to start reaching out to folks, start reaching out to your guides or past loved ones who you recognize. If you're worried about seeing them, past loved ones, they have an energetic signature. It's like if you had your eyes closed and your ears closed and you couldn't feel anything and they walked in a room, you would be able to pick up on the energetic signature. That is unique. It's more unique than a name. So work with the people you know, rather than, being like, spirits, come to me and tell me something. Don't do that. You never know what you're going to get.
That's why only experienced people should use things like Ouija boards. That's why you need
people who know how to say no and mean it. And, perhaps practitioners who know how to put safety measures around the board and that kind of thing. It's also important to note, real quick, mediums aren't always practitioners. Practitioners are those who can actually do something about it. A lot of folks, mediums, they can see, perceive, hear, what have you, spirits, though they don't always know how to stand in their power with that. So a practitioner is one who has methods to be able to do something about a situation rather than just communicate alone. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And that's one thing that I think paranormal investigators should also have on their team. You should have a medium and a practitioner. If the person's the same, medium practitioner, great. But anyway,
I just want to throw this out there. Rebecca and I have pitched this before, but I think we should pitch it to the ether again. I think we should have a show where we just go and have milk and cookies with different spirits and talk to them about like cozy stuff. I think it should be a cozy ghost hunter show where we just like say hi to animal spirits and things like that.
I would love that.
I think
I would love that.
Just to touch on that again, because I know we've said it on here before, but I'm just going to keep throwing it into the ether until it comes out.
That's good. Yeah, keep doing that. I already know, like, people that would want, like, Crystal Lynn. I would want to be like, come in, Crystal Lynn. Like, let's all just sit around with cookies.
Right? I think that there's a market for that, and I think that they're missing out on it in network spaces.
I mean, we're just drawing it to us. We're like, everybody, at some point, at some point. Though, with your guides, or even with your past loved ones, so long as they're far along in their spiritual journey, that they're no longer bound by things left undone, they can also assist with this. But yeah, if you've got that kind of connection with your guides, trust them. I mean, everybody's connected to their guides. And oftentimes, sometimes we have to tell them what we need and what we want. So if you're worried about opening up into these things, but you have guides, because you do, and you're like, oh, what if things get in? Maybe the first way to start connecting is to talk to your guides and be like, hi, please do not let other things in. I'm working on this. Things will grow in time. I'll use an example because I know you have examples too with this. So I know some mediums, when they work, they invite spirits to them, or the spirit will come to them even before the session. I do not work like that. It's very much I meet with the client and I make sure that they're okay. And I ask them consent, even though they already booked. I ask them in the meeting, I'm like, is it okay with you? We're going to bridge our energy. We're going to do this thing. And then I always ask the spirit consent after that. But I know some folks have spirits just kind of running in and out of their homes. Now, this is something that I had to learn. And for a little bit, I had a spirit who really enjoyed coming to my space and talking to me while I was asleep. Well, I was really stressed out at that time. That was the time when Mira was not doing so well. And so sometimes I would wake up in the middle of the night and just be really sad. So I would just like curl up with her and just like tell her that I loved her and that kind of thing. So like I was going through a lot of stuff. And I know my energy was kind of out a little bit in different places. At that point, I was also being honest with myself. I had to do some rescheduling for stuff because I always wanted to bring my best. And, when you're mourning the transition of a very beloved person, be kind to yourself. I had to learn that. It's also something I'm working in therapy on. But anywho, basically the spirit kept... It's not that he was bad or anything like that, though he kept reaching out because he wanted to talk and he wanted to talk. And finally, I just like cracked one night and I was like, I need quiet. I can't help. I can hardly help me right now. I need quiet. And Rupert was like hanging out in the vicinity and I was like, Rupert, help. And he was like, okay. And he like drags Guy out and he's like, you're not welcome here anymore. So
you mean the guy out like, come on, sir, we're going this way. You're not welcome.
No.
I'm sorry, just Rupert's energy though is just so like proper and sweet that it's just
he can be that way. I think it was because of the stress of the entire situation, and he was also seeing how affected I was. And to the spirit's credit, I truly do not feel that the spirit understood what I was going through, because
Yeah.
I hadn't like announced it. It's not like I was going up to random spirits and being like, hi, my best friend isn't doing so well. No. So that's the thing. It was a misunderstanding, though I flat out cracked at like 2:30 a.m. and I was like, I need quiet. And Rupert was like, hold.
Uh,
So
oh, love Rupert.
he is what he is.
I adore it.
Though I know, I think you've told this story on a live before, but I want to hear it again because it's so great. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes, you. Yeah, I think I told you pretty much first right after it happened. I was like, whoa, this is down. So I have very strong spiritual boundaries too. One of my guides is a main protector for me. She's actually the guide that I met first once I like had my spiritual reawakening. And I a long time ago was like, no ghosts in my home. Period. Like that's not negotiable for me. No ghosts in my home. Really quick before I tell this story, I love that you talk about how you ask for consent and stuff multiple times during any sort of reading. I do as well. It's super duper important, especially if I'm out and about and anyone's loved ones break into my medium room. I will literally tell them to kick rocks. I am never going to approach somebody and go say, hey, your loved one says this. I think that that's really irresponsible because the person who's corporeal did not consent to that. So I really just appreciate that. And I just want to highlight like that is a super important spiritual practice, whether or not you'd be willing to have someone come up and say that to you. You don't know what they're going to say and you don't necessarily know if you're going to be willing to hear what they have to say and you didn't consent to that. So it just, in general, it's something that's really important in spiritual community. And also you shouldn't give help without having asked the person if they want it either. That was a big thing recently on this platform. Anyway, moving on from that one. But yeah, so this was like, I guess 2 months ago now or so. We have a coffee shop that was down the street from our house, and it's in an old house, this coffee shop, and I really like this coffee shop. It is very common knowledge among the community that it is very haunted and that the spirit there is very angry. I never found him particularly angry. Steve is just crotchety. Like that would be like he's just
What is it with Steve's? I know another crotchety Steve that's in spirit.
He's just crotchety. He's just grumpy as all hell. He really would rather the whole time, every time I ever went to the coffee shop and I ever talked to him, and he was actually one of the first, not the first ghosts, I guess, but one of the clearest ghosts. Like I could see him physically with my eyes because he was so much emotion. You know what I mean? And so he was one of the first ghosts where I was like, haha, I see your emotion. I see your energy because you're so corporeal from that space, like with my physical eyes. But every time I go in there, I'd say hi to Steve and he'd get mad at me because I existed in his space, just the same way he got mad at everyone else for existing in his space. It used to be his house and he didn't want his house turned into a coffee shop, which like fair, whatever. But I would always greet Steve because I was entering his house. I'd always offer if he wanted to take like a bite out of anything I bought there, if he wanted it, whatever. He never did. He never took me up on it, whatever. So a couple months ago, said coffee shop closed. And I didn't think much of it. I was just like, oh, cool. Steve will get his wish. Like, moving on. I'm not particularly attached to him. I don't want to go have another conversation with him. So I was doing dishes and just hanging out in my kitchen. And all of a sudden, I felt something enter through my front door. And I had 3 guides pop, like, immediately, like, boom, like, rush at whatever had just entered the house. To the point, it surprised me so much, I physically jumped and dropped the plate, like, into the sink. I was, like, washing. I was like, what just happened? What just is going on? Are we under attack? Like, I don't understand what's going on. And they were like, don't worry about it. And they just, like, went back to being, like, chilling, like, where they were around me. And I was like, excuse me? Worried about it. Like, what was that? Turns out Steve had decided he was bored with it not being a coffee shop anymore. And I live very close to said coffee shop, and I was the only one that was the most in tune. So he tried to come in to tell me that he would like it to be a coffee shop once more. And my guy was like, yeah, no fucking way, you're not entering. Like, that's not gonna happen. And they immediately shoved him right back out because 1, no ghosts in my house. 2, I'm not his friend. We are not homies. You don't just get to walk in. So yeah, that was the most recent story with that coming up. And yeah, that was both my dragon guide and my protector. We're like, no, I think not.
Not today.
Right.
And honestly, the reason why I asked you to share that story again, and also I shared my own, is to encourage all of you. Like, yeah, we think our guides are the best thing ever because they're ours. that's not to say that you don't have the best guides ever for you.
Mm-hmm.
And we tell these stories because that is what they do for us. Now, we're more aware of these things because we've done a lot of work to become aware of these things.
Yep.
Well, I say work, but it's we've done a lot of awareness to become aware of these things because it shouldn't feel like work.
Right, because when you say at work, I'm like, you mean I've been done a lot of sitting there going like this? Like, that's really
like daydreaming for like hours and being like, wow. That's the work I'm talking about. It's not even hours. Sometimes it's like, I'm going to look off at nothing and just see what happens.
My husband and I are going to Rome next year because I'm riding with Custard, and he surprised me for my birthday. It was very, very sweet. And I was like, maybe we should take a train ride to Pompeii while we're there, because I'm all about, I just want to go around and channel stuff. By the way, this is not the announcement that's coming tomorrow for those of you who've been following our Clue game. This is not it. This is like a private trip I'm taking with my husband. And he was like, I don't know if I want to take you to Pompeii. And I was like, why? And he was like, here's what I would think would happen. He's like, we'd be on the train and you'd be like, oh, there's this weird buzzing sound and I can't figure it out. And I'd be like, oh, really? What is that? And you'd be like, I don't know. And then the train doors open and just be screaming and you'd be like, I figured it out. And I was like, that is probably accurate, actually. Like, you know that very well. Like, going to any sort of like traumatic zone like that is definitely overwhelming for me. But I thought that was really cute. And I think that's the similar thing, is like the work really just looks like us sitting there perceiving different levels.
But yeah, just kind of going back to all of it, we all have the guides that we are meant to have for our lives for this time, because sometimes guides will pop in and out depending on what you need. So if you're inspired by any of the things that we have told you, rather than look at us and be like, oh man, I wish I could be like them. No, say, oh wow, I want to be like me. I want to have those experiences. I want to reach out to my guides and have stories to tell about them. That's why we say these things. It's never to be like, wow, you know, like closed gate, we're the mediums here. No, I hate that stuff. I'm like, we all have these abilities, you know?
I don't know if you do this, but I will there'll be some times where I've like, it's been a little while since I've had like a cool story from my guides doing something or like helping me, and they just, you know, we're just doing day-to-day life. And sometimes I'll just be like, you know, I need a reminder that magic is real. Could you please do something? Like, could you please like reconnect me for a second? Like, I don't feel as magical right now. And that's also totally valid. I don't know if you do that too, but you know, sometimes it gets really day to day and it really feels like normal because we obviously do this work and it's like most of our life. And that'll happen to you guys too as you expand your psychic abilities and it becomes normal. And it's okay to ask for magical stuff to happen again so that you can feel more aligned. And your guides will gladly oblige, at least in my experience.
Another suggestion with that would be give them space. If you're looking for them, then give them space to present themselves. Like right now, I'm doing I'm in this place where I'm like doing a lot of connection with one guide in particular who has been there my entire life, but really it's been more recently that I've been like, hey, So one thing that I've been doing to connect with her is, it's not always every night because I offer myself grace on this, though as many nights as I can, I'll spend time just like I do with spirits when I make my scripts, and I'll just kind of think of, sometimes I'll like directly channel and I'll write down what I say, what they say, what I say, what they say. It's been monumental for my practice. Though I've started doing that with my guides too. I will ask questions and I'll see what I get. Sometimes it's not always I hear the answer. Sometimes it is I'm sensing that they are saying this. Or I feel like they are sad when I ask that question. That is still communication. It may not be all the communication that we want, but that's also the journey. You can go up to ask anybody a question and they may not always give you everything that you're looking for. So if that happens with you, if you're drawing a picture or making bullet points or writing something down or just like free for all writing ideas, give yourself kindness, because you may be getting as clear as they want you to get. That doesn't always mean that you're broken or you're not doing well enough. It just, they're two beings and they have opinions between you and the other or whoever else you're talking to.
Yep. And it's huge too, is always remember, like, we're confined by the construct of this physical reality. They aren't, so let them be the magical one that brings stuff to you. That is totally fine. They have the ability to manipulate things differently in those sorts of spaces. Someone just asked, like, how do you know when your guides are trying to contact you? Synchronicities, songs, it's your own type of thing that comes up. If all of a sudden you feel like you're having a pattern and something keeps coming to the surface, that's probably your guide being like, yo, we talked about emotions earlier. And Rebekah will post all of this to her YouTube, by the way, so you guys can all rewatch it. So if you missed that, you can go back and watch that. But basically, if you feel like talking to them, if you're feeling pulled to communicate with them in any way, they're probably reaching out to you. Genuinely. And you can ask, hey, how do you come forward? Like, how do you want to talk to me? What do you want from me? Hey, I see you. Please make yourself known. Anything like that. Open questions are fine. You can also ask your guides what you should wear in the morning, or is it in my head to have a salad for lunch or a burger? Like, you can ask them anything. I actually say the more mundane questions, kind of the better, because you're open that space more often for them to fill with information and throw things at you, etc. One question that we got earlier, going back a little bit to the fear thing that I wanted to touch on, someone asked, how to deal with energy vampires, especially if you have a lot of empathic or sensitive energy. And I thought that was a fabulous question, especially with the fear stuff, because that is another fear that comes up for people wanting to use the things that you open and connect with. Do you have tips on that? I have some thoughts, but I want to make sure I get yours first.
Yeah. So energy vampires, they can be spiritual, they can be physical, they can be a spirit that hangs out with a physical person, because that can happen. And for anybody who's wondering, energy vampires, to me at least, it's exactly how it sounds. It is a being, whether that be physical or other, who pulls energy away from maybe an individual or even a space. The other thing that they might do is, this is kind of the opposite of a vampire, but it can also have the same effect if it's, say, like a thought form spirit, that's what I call them anyway, that kind of eats a particular emotion. So maybe like an anxiety or a fear or something like that. And so in order to exist, they also work to create that emotion. So it's like this sort of roundabout thing. And sometimes, they use people or spirits to do that for them. Now, here's the thing. None of that I say to make you afraid of anything. The reason why I say it, and this is what we're getting to, is you can do stuff about it. So, once again, starting from scratch, if you get these feelings, or if you feel like something's been sucked out from you, ask yourself, is the feeling mine? Or did I drain that? Is it because I'm getting tired? And hey, if it's because you're getting tired, take a break. Even if it's stare at a wall for 10 minutes, that's actually been psychologically proven to have a good effect. But do what you need to do. And hey, if that's all you got to do, it's not a spiritual thing, great. Let's say it's a spiritual thing. So with that, one, you can always reclaim your energy. If you realize that something's been sucked out, be like, no, wherever my energy went, I'm calling it right back. I've even done that when I've gotten sick before. Like, I got sick after I was traveling. It was just like a cold. And I realized that in part it was because I was putting my energy out everywhere, and then I wasn't replenishing in any way. So I stood outside in the sun, and I grounded, and I said, all health that I have put into others that they did not restore back into me, it was not a agreed upon exchange, all of that comes back to me now. And it works. Behold, say what you mean what you say, believe what you say, behold. Now, granted, my body still had to shove out some snot for the next 2 days, but I noticed a difference. That being said, do things like sleep and drink water and acknowledge that you're sick in the first place. I'm not going to discount science in that. That being said, the other thing, super important, is to shield. So if you are sensitive enough that you start to recognize something kind of coming close to you that's not yours and doesn't feel good, whoop, shield. Just put that sucker right up. If it wasn't already up, maybe it got a little bit, whatever. Maybe it got a little bit thin or something. Life happens, whatever. Don't beat yourself up. Don't be like, what happened to my shield? No, just put it back up. Just be like, There it goes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I also say whenever it comes to energy vampires too, you can also give them a different energy to feed off of, which is one of my favorite techniques, which basically I'll just be like, all right, you want this sort of energy, whether it's a person or whether it's a thought form spirit, which are very real things that create that energy, or if it's a spirit, I'll just grab some earth energy and just be like, have that. Feed off of that. It's not mine. You can have it. And which is really simple. You can visualize yourself pulling energy up from the earth, which whenever I say visualize, it means see, sense, hear, feel, know, taste, or smell. You don't have to just see it in your mind's eye, which I don't want to discredit people who can't visualize very well. Like by all means, visualize means use senses, but just ask for some, ball of energy to form in your hands, throw it at them, step inside a crystal from the earth and allow them to eat on that crystal, like whatever it is that you feel that coming. Give them some earth energy. Earth energy is constantly being replenished. She is here to help and heal us. And that's probably going to give them what they need anyway, energetically, to grow, to change, to raise their vibration, to stop eating off of people, you name it. But yeah, that's another way of doing it. I totally agree with everything Rebekah said, but also that's very helpful.
I love your empathetic answer. Here I was being like, and defense, and you offered very like, hey, if they're hungry, just give them something. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess that. That is nice, isn't it?
Yeah. You can
let what an option.
No, there has been definitely there has been energy vampires I've come across first. Like, always shield your energy first, and then if you still feel up to it and you still feel them around, by all means give them earth energy to eat off of, or universe energy. You can call it infinite universe too, and be like, you have that. You have that little bowl of popcorn I just made you from the earth. But that works too. But yeah, always shield. And I mean, I've shoved things out of my space many a time. Like, nope. No. Yeah. So I agree with that. With the fear of energy vampires, again, just remind yourself how magical and powerful you are. You don't need to be afraid of these things. You have the ability to stop them. Everyone has in their life developed a sense of when people are there for your benefit and when people are there to harm you and when you don't like them. It's the same thing with spirits and energy. Like, genuinely, it's not different. It's like we think about it different because we think they have all this magic over us, but they don't. Like, if you feel off about a spirit, you don't have to work with them, or a entity out there in the universe. You don't have to work with them. If you're really into working with this being and they're feeling really good to work with, then try it out. Always stay protected. Don't invite anything into your own physical energy space ever. My guides don't enter my physical energy space. Like, I have channeling spaces. That's not my energy field. Never invite things into your own energy field. That is your sacred space. And everyone gets to have that for themselves. So that's my other tip on that one.
Okay, how do you feel about trance mediumship?
Okay, so here's my thing with that. It is nearly impossible to remove all traces of energy from something entered your energy field. It is really, really challenging. Trance mediumship can happen as long as you're creating safe barriers within your energy space, I think, to hold that being in while you do the trance mediumship. It's such an advanced technique, first of all. So I never recommend that for anyone who's just starting out. There's a way to channel in and talk out without being in trance, where you're taking something's energy into your space. And that's a lot of times a lot of people are actually doing, is just talking through the trance, like talking through without inviting it into their zone. There is people who do channel through inviting stuff into your space. I just think there's so many other ways to do it that are safer and healthier for both parties that I never would recommend that as a particular technique for someone to use. That's my opinion. What about you?
Yeah, I guess I don't really see why it's necessary to give in that far. Now, one exception is depending on the religious belief, because I know some religions, like I know for different versions of voodoo, Vodun, hoodoo, there's this understanding of you can be what's called ridden in their culture by a higher spirit. Now, here's the exception. That's not casual. That is a process. And it is seen as a high honor to have that happen. Not to mention, typically when that does happen, it's to an individual or maybe a few in small number. They're surrounded by people who are creating this protective line for them. So when I talk about trance mediumship, I'm not talking about stuff like that. It's like I've seen trance mediumship go very wrong. And for me, like what's interesting is I'll go back and replay lives where I'm talking to my spirit friends. And
Mm-hmm.
you start to see me maybe have like some characteristics, or I might start to sound a little bit different, how my words are coming across. All the same, though, they're not in me.
No.
They're always somewhere. It's like I'm picking up on the line and I'm, just sort of translating that. And that's the thing. For anybody out there who might be doing trance mediumship, hey, if you're safe in your practice, I'm not going to sit here and like be like, oh, well, because I said so. Like, everybody's different. Everybody's experience will be different.
100%.
I guess my thing is, I don't see why it's necessary. I don't see why you would need to do that. And I know for some, it's like they will want that from like a past loved one. Like they'll want the medium to do that for a past loved one so they get that validation. But from where I'm at, I'm kind of like, for some people, even that will never be enough. They will either believe or they just won't. That's really up to them.
Yeah. And I just want to clarify for a couple of people on here because they're wondering what is trance mediumship. It's essentially the idea of a conscious medium, a conscious decision to call in a different entity into their physical space and speak through them. So no, if you've ever like given advice and not remember what you said but came back from it, that's not trance mediumship. You weren't conscious. You didn't invite an entity in. You were just using your claircognizance probably to like channel through and give your guide, give your message, whatever it is that way. Things like Reiki or theta healing, or even what I do is I do a lot of I'm a practitioner, going back to things. I can do stuff about spirits, also do a lot of energy healing stuff with people in soul readings. That is different because I'm not going into your energy field to speak from your body. I'm going into your energy field to pull this little thing out that your guides and you have agreed for me to pull and release, and I'm doing it using creator energy to release it. Like it's an entirely different sort of energy. Same thing with Reiki for the most part. Yes, you are using things to move something through someone's energy field. You're not inhabiting their energy field. That's the difference. Hopefully that makes sense to everyone. So trance mediumship is different because it's literally that you're by spirit entity, whatever, to take over essentially your physical form for a certain amount of time. Channeling, you're allowing them to give you information that you're then speaking out, which obviously Rebekah and I are channelers, so we're very adept at speaking. So just to like clarify that.
And thank you, because I had this question. And okay, let's go into hypothetical land, because I know that this is a fear that people have as well. What if something gets in me? Let's use this as an example. George. He actually was not the first one to do this with me, and I actually had to do some shadow work to figure out the extent of different times in my life where I didn't know what I was doing, and I was downplaying my abilities, and it was a whole lot of stuff. I always say, if you think you have abilities, start doing things that are good for you. It's better to protect you than to go along and be like, oh, it's not happening, and then have something worse happen. Basic measures of shielding, protecting, and we both have things on our pages. I have lives posted where we talked about this before, so consider checking them out so that we won't repeat a bunch of things. So George in particular was very connected to my thoughts. Like, it got to a point where I was struggling to recognize what thoughts were mine and what thoughts were his, because they were so muddy. And then occasionally, like, he would get too close. And I actually recorded a live where I was channeling him, and one, I didn't remember a lot of the things that I said. It was a audio recording. Okay. Kat was with me. Thank goodness. Kat is awesome. Because Kat got me out of that situation too, because I was so deeply in it. There were parts where I didn't remember what I had said. And it wasn't just like a word or a phrase. It was what did I say? And then there were also like feelings, this kind of attachment. Like he was like touching my shoulders, and non-consensual stuff. It was not okay. What I learned from that experience, and this is why I say all this, is not to scare anyone. It's to say that be aware of this stuff so you can do something about it. Mm-hmm. If I'm pushing something out, say you know, say my shield is not as strong as I thought it was or something like that. Typically it is nowadays. But hypothetically, if something gets in, what I do is I take a breath just to ground myself. And I imagine sometimes I'll even like curl my toes inside of my shoes to like latch a little bit. And as I latch, I imagine that I am sinking into the ground just enough so that I can't be blown over. From there, I pull up energy, I collect it here, and then I shove it. And I just blow it out. It's intentional. Like when I do that, it's like a bomb. And that's intentional. Like that's the thing. Shielding can move. I've literally bumped off spirits before when they get too close just because they had no business to be. I've had spirits run at me before, so I've had to be like before. But yeah, anyone can do that. It's just a matter ground, pull the energy up, bam. And that's how you have to get them out sometimes.
Yeah. I also highly recommend, you know, in like when people like those old shows where it's like people are getting sucked up in a beam me up beam by aliens, give yourself a beam me up beam. Like if you're feeling like something is in your energetic space that you don't want there, go to creator source, universe energy, whatever you call it, and just be like, beam me up beam, like be a vacuum for anything that's not mine. And it vacuums it up with someone else's energy, vacuuming it up straight into creator energy. And then whatever attached to you can deal with that because they came on space, not allowed.
I'll say too, on a lighter note, sometimes spirits like ghosts in particular, they may be trying to reach out to you, and if they touch you and you're not comfortable with that, you don't have to give excuses, blow them off. Like consent always works both ways. It's exactly as you said earlier. It's not this, oh well, they're in spirit, so I guess they can do whatever they want. No.
I would also say too, usually you can feel when something's attached to your energy because it's like a desperation and it's not like a personal attack on you. And sometimes it's attached to your energy because like, or they're trying to attach your energy because there's like malice there, which is very, very clear. Like you guys, no one will not know this difference. Like you will know the difference. And that's when you can be like, get off. You can say get off to either one. It's the difference is sometimes when it's a desperation, you're like, are you okay? Like what's going on? And you like want to talk to them versus the one that's like trying to hang on and like, you're like, no, that's not a thing. But again, every single one of you has this power and it's not to scare you. It's just to give you guys some tools and be equipped to talk about that. And someone said, is it better to ground outside in the actual earth or is it more about visualization? Both work well.
It's whatever works for you. Like if it helps you to go out, and I know for me, I love being barefoot. It's just, I enjoy this very much. That's why I live in a hot climate so that I can be barefoot as much as I can. But yeah, for me, it's a connection sort of thing. Though I tell people if you're learning that, maybe for the first time, go out, ground, see what it feels like. Though afterwards, it's calling that energy. It's not always having to be that energy.
Yeah, grounding is also really helpful. If you're ever feeling like you're diving into something and you're kind of nervous about it or whatever, just ground. Let the earth hold you and then dive into it. It's really, really helpful. That's also why grounding tools are really helpful. Like I keep a variety. You can't see them, but there are many crystals, etc., right next to me. And I know Rebekah does the same. Stuff up throughout readings if I'm feeling a little disconnected or this like over here, whatever it is, because I'm like, oh, I need to ground right now and I need to anchor this energy back in, or I'm feeling really, really channely right now and I want to hold on to this a little bit different. Or sometimes you can wear things or, you know, have certain things in your pocket. That also helps with grounding.
So yeah, well, we are about at an hour. I'm thinking if we kind of answer one more question.
Sure.
We're to go from there. Okay.
Yeah.
So whoever sees a question first.
Hold on. Thank you all for saying how helpful this is. Like we appreciate all of you deeply, and like it's fun to get to. I always feel so honored to exist in a time when I can talk about all of my fun, weird psychic stuff and have it be helpful to others. And I know Rebekah feels the same because like even 10 years ago that was not a thing. So we're like so excited to be here. It's really, really fantastic.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that.
Absolutely. This is going to be on Rebekah's YouTube. When do you post it to YouTube? Someone asked.
I believe I'll be able to post it tomorrow. My YouTube is linked to my bio. It's Quirks and Conjure. Or if you search Rebekah the Ghost Guide on YouTube, you will find the same page.
Okay. Oh, thank you all for saying how amazing this has been. You're so sweet. Someone asked, is sex an example of letting someone into your energy field? No, that is different. That is a mutual agreement between humans most of the time, or between other beings. It's a little bit different. It's not like you're letting them take over your body. You're sharing energy. That's my 2 cents. I don't want to get banned, so I'm keeping that.
It was like not the question I was expecting to answer, but I'm gonna say I agree with what you say.
Yeah. Moving on from that really quickly, are there special crystals to use for protection or grounding? Do you have your favorites?
For shielding and grounding, okay. For grounding, I actually, and this may be in part the metaphor that's also behind it. Speedy, my turtle that represents Hermes. He's made out of granite.
I realized Speedy represented Hermes. That is so funny to me. I love that with all of my heart.
I will tell you the story, not on live, of how I acquired Speedy. Because it was a very Hermes thing to do. Also, for me...
Where to go?
Oh, sorry, what was that?
I just said Hermes is so chaotic. Like, I swear, it's the best. It's every time I've ever channeled his energy, I'm like, you are just so exhausting. You have so much chaos.
Hermes, enjoys cake as an offering, and so do I. Like, I'll have my cake and I'll make him cake. Like, I always get him donuts from my favorite donut shop. Like, it's a local place in town, so I'm always like, which donut do you want? Okay. Like,
totally get it.
Also, I was gonna say, what is it? Smoky quartz. I'm really drawn to smoky quartz right now. I think I'm wearing it right now. That is my go-to stone for clear channeling right now. I've got a little smooth one that I just hold. It makes me pretty happy.
I love that. I love red jasper.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. I wish I could tell you like there was a reason. I just love it. I have a huge, my uncle used to mine stones, so he always brings me rocks whenever I see him, and it makes me incredibly happy. But I have a huge chunk of it that's like unpolished sitting in the middle of my counter. So anytime you walk into the house, you can like put your hands on it and like get clear and grounded. It's fantastic. That's my favorite. I've really been into opalite forever. I love it. It is man-made, but the energy that it's used to combine in there is just really, opalite is just fantastic. And I especially like that one for like a protection sort of space, because even though it's not black, a lot of times black is associated with that. So like obsidian, black tourmaline kind of things. Mm-hmm. Opalite for some reason for me feels like the cushion of transmutation. So like instead of like protecting you in a way of like shields, it's more of protecting you of like, oh, this energy is going to come in, and by the time it hits you, it's going to be something else. And I like that.
You reminded me, I have a jewelry piece that I used when I was doing tours, and I still regularly wear when there's a lot of not awesome energy around, but it's a shimmering obsidian. And something that I always say if I'm going to wear it or use it is, I basically say, may this light the path that I need to tread by repelling that which does not serve me away from me.
Yeah. Power of intention is really so incredible. Like, your words actually have energetic signatures, and you adding more energy to your words is like the biggest tool anyone can have ever. That's why my handle is what it is. It's because it's genuinely like words are magic. If you think about it, like that is the way we have been able to like get knowledge from people who lived 5,000, 7,000, whatever years ago. It's purely through language and words, and that in and of itself is magical as hell. So anytime in doubt, attention. That's my 2 cents.
I love that. Well, I think that'll count as the question, because I thought that was really good. And I love if people are talking in my chat, talking about the crystals that they use. And hey, here's something to consider too. It's not always about crystals. If you vibe with other things, great. Like, crystals are a hot topic right now. I know for me, I really vibe with smoke that comes from eucalyptus incense. Like, it's what we're you.
I think my kids took it. I have a little rubber dino, and he's my buddy, and he channeled with me. Oh, here he is.
Very good. Very good.
Fine too. Little rubber dino. Why? Because I like him.
Yeah. So yeah, I thank you again for coming on my live and talking about fears and how to deal with them.
So anyone who mindsight, if you haven't actually seen Rebekah's stuff before, please go check out her stuff. It's really awesome. She's fantastic. She does a lot of ghost channeling stuff. She also offer readings and things like that too in a different capacity than I do. So her readings are very different than mine. So if you've ever had a reading with me before, but you're looking for something different, like please go check out her stuff. She's just really incredible.
Yes, and likewise to you. You have a lot of courses, which I know both of us have a very long waiting list for when we're available for sessions of various sorts. And one cool thing that you offer is courses on various things. So if you are looking for something that you don't have to wait on, and you could very much just like start tonight, check out Emily's page.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a beginning channeling course at 7 days, and then a more in-depth one that's like 9 weeks, and they're all digital. They're go at your own pace. I am offering a first ever time to learn from me in person that I've never offered before, which is a international retreat with me and Crystal Lynn. We are going to be traveling somewhere, and you guys can travel with us. We're announcing where we're going tomorrow, and I'm going to tell you all the details kind of after that. So stay tuned if you want to actually learn from me in person for like 7 days, which is the first time I've ever offered that. So pretty excited.
Love that. That's so exciting. Yeah, I follow your podcast. That's Alchemist Inkwell. For anybody wondering what that is, do check that out. But yeah, I heard it last week, and I was like, ooh, how interesting.
Yeah. No, we're excited. And yeah, thank you for inviting me on too. And I love getting to come on here and chat with you. And the tech has worked this time.
Yeah.
So that's been awesome. But yeah, thank you all so much for being here. And again, this replay will be available on Rebekah's YouTube. So go check it out.
All right. Cool.
All right.
Well, have a good night, everybody.
You too. Mwah.